in the field that I'm in, it's quite varied, the backgrounds from them. So for example, at Dundee Science Centre, there was, it was quite a small team there, but they're from a wide range of things, where we obviously had people who had science backgrounds. So I was working with colleagues who had backgrounds in, various different science subjects. There was also people who had, computer science backgrounds, and working with people who came from the fine arts, degrees, and there are people from business backgrounds and things. So Dundee Science Centre was a total mixture of all kinds of people. And again, working with the European Space Agency is obviously, tends to be a lot more people who have come from an exact sciences side. So the people I'm working with in the science division, most of those have, done a PhD in the relevant scientific fields. But in the education side of things that I've been working with, a lot of them, I haven't really asked a lot about their, where they went to uni or what degrees they got and things, because that's another good thing to keep in mind, is once you get into careers and things, nobody really cares that much, outside of interviews and applications and stuff. If you're just chatting and just being involved in the working community, it doesn't really matter what grades you got, or what exact school you went to, or what specific subjects you did and things. So I don't know very detailed the kind of backgrounds that the people I work with had, and I think a lot of them don't know much about my academic background either, apart from the people who hired me, who do know. But people who work from the education department at the European Space Agency, I think some of them have come from much more of an education background, but a lot of them had some general science backgrounds, or something related, and then they sort of sidestepped into education. So I think education, physics education as a field is really growing at the moment, and it definitely, even 5 years ago or so, it wasn't as big as it is now. I mean, it's still pretty small, but it's growing. So most of the people who are involved in physics education, they sidestepped into it from some other career path, which I think is quite a common way to end up in specifically more niche fields. So even if you're going along one path, but you see something else, you're like, oh, maybe I want to do that instead. It's pretty easy, in my experience at least, depending on fields. Obviously, you can't go from complete 180, but to sort of sidestep into certain fields. I mean, one of the people I'll be working with on my PhD, he has a background in fine arts or computer arts, and now he's going in to do a PhD that'll be a physics PhD with an arts component to it and things. But yeah, so there's a lot of varied backgrounds of people that I work with. So what's nice about that is that it really shows that regardless of your academic background or whatever, as long as you're doing things you're interested in and excited about at each stage, there's usually a fair amount of sort of leeway in it, I'd say. It's a tricky one, really, because there's certain things you can do to sort of raise your odds, but the chances are there's a lot of people applying for lots of things, and in terms of the numbers game, there's some I think there's some approximate ratio where it's every 10 applications you send out, you're going to get one interview, and every 10 interviews you go to, you'll get one job. So the odds are sort of stacked against everyone, really. But I would say a few ways that are really good to just boost your your odds in terms of getting jobs, or just getting interest in your applications, would be have a good CV, have a nice CV. I think there's a whole bunch of courses, and also just there are lecturers who'd be happy to just take a look at it. So you could say, do you mind taking a look at my CV? Let me know what can I change, or what should I add, or what should I take out? Because also a lot of the times you don't want to fill it up with stuff that's not useful. So don't fill in stuff from years and years and years ago that's totally not relevant. It's nice to leave in a little bit of flavor of maybe if you want to prize for baking. You know, it depends a lot on the job application. If it's like a very formal, like academic position, you might not want to add that in. But if it's like you know, working for some like other smaller company or something, you might want to leave it in. But you know, make sure that all the information on your CV and things is readable. And also, just my main recommendation would be just get out there and just do things. Like find what, you know, interests you and what excites you and what you like doing, and just start doing things. Like what I did is I started off by volunteering at like science days in the physics building, and then, you know, even things like being a school ambassador for the physics building, where you go to open days for prospective students and tell them about the university, and like it's good fun and it looks pretty good on your CV. And then just, you know, once you start, you know, doing these kind of things, you'll find that more stuff sort of comes to you. And just, if you can, obviously don't overwork yourself because uni is hard enough as it is, but if you can find something you're interested in doing, just go and do stuff and then put it on your CV, and it gives you more to talk about in applications, gives you more to talk about in interviews, and just makes you look like you're, you know, interested and excited and a well-rounded, motivated person. So my main tip is do stuff. It depends so much on what field you're interested in. So it just happens that because the field I'm interested in is physics education, I'm quite lucky in the position that there are a lot of you know, volunteering opportunities that are education related, whether that's, you know, helping at open days or going to, you know, presenting work and things. But things like this can also be good for a lot of fields. Like if you yeah, so there's quite a lot of opportunities, for example, like helping at science days and things. Even if education isn't what you're interested in, if you can find, you know, a table or a stall or something at these science days and present your work, not only does that help because it helps build your confidence in terms of presenting matter and talking to, you know, the general public or to other people about topics, which is great for example, interviews. And it can be quite like nerve-wracking at first, but practice is always useful for these kind of things. And again, I'd go back to talking to people who are in the field you want to be in and say, hey, what can I do at this stage? Like, what can I get involved in? Maybe there's some like little online courses you can get involved in, as long as you don't like overwork yourself with uni as well. But yeah, I think the best, it depends so much on the exact field you want to go into, but I would say the best thing to do would be ask one of the lecturers or one of the faculty that's in the correct kind of fields. And if they don't give you useful information, or even if they do, you could say, could you point me in the direction of somebody else who will be able to, you know, share information? And you can just follow that chain all the way. You say, this is really interesting and helpful. Who else could you recommend I talk to next? And then you can just hop from one to the next, get as much information as you can. But yeah, I would say, like, you know, obviously it's important to get good grades at uni, but like, for example, for me, my grades were like, they were fine. They weren't anything, you know, exceptional. I got like a solid 2-1 with my degree, but I think it's all the extra stuff that really makes it, you know, stand out more in terms of applications, because there's going to be a lot of people applying with the same grades as you. So in order to stand out, you want to, you know, have something on there that just shows you're a little bit, you know, more motivated or a little bit more interested or this kind of thing. You're in a sort of working environment, a lot of this is similar advice to the sort of interview things. Is show enthusiasm is a good way to, you know, just make a positive impact. And also things like, don't underestimate the benefits of socializing within the work environment. You'll get a long way if people, you know, like you, or if they, even if just they remember like, oh yeah, I had a cup of coffee with them, whether that's virtually or in real life. Things like, you know, attend the after work drinks or these kind of things, and just basically like chat and be interested in what people are working on. And things like when I first started working at ESA, they were looking for people to present, you know, just like informal little presentations that were like little breakfast seminars. And I did a presentation, a very informal presentation about my master's work. And that got a lot of different, a lot of really good responses. And I got to chat with a lot of people after that, and people then knew what I was sort of interested in, and you sort of get your name out there a little bit. But I would say, yeah, don't underestimate the value of just networking, which is useful but also fun, which is good.